Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in from across the country, coast to coast to coast. My name is Jesse Hildebrand, and I am here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We've got a lot of new faces in the crowd today, and so if you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you're catching us on a very exciting day. First and foremost, it is February, so it is our entire month solely dedicated to showcasing and celebrating the most amazing women in STEM on planet Earth. We've got 50 programs this month alone with Egyptologists, paleontologists, Arctic botanists, explorers of every stripe from all around the globe. All those programs are on our YouTube channel, so you can learn from some of the coolest people on planet Earth. And today's also exciting because today is a triple organization broadcast. Now, we are joining again with our friends at Environment and Climate Change Canada. We've got two incredible scientists who are going to be sharing where have all the birds gone and what can we do to help in just a minute. But we're also partnering for the first time today with Ecoschools Canada. So Ecoschools is the biggest organization in Canada for environmental literacy and certification programs for classrooms. My school growing up as a high school was an eco school, a platinum eco school. It's one of the best things you can do in this country if you are interested in the environment and sustainability and beyond. And I want to bring in someone from Ecoschools to explain a little bit more about it before we turn you over to our amazing speaker. So Ayub, if you want to come on in, man, and flick on your presentation. It's so nice to have the Ecoschools team here with us, and tell us a little more about it. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy and grateful to be joining you today. So I am the bilingual program manager at Ecoschools Canada, and maybe you're wondering, what is Ecoschools Canada? So Ecoschools Canada is a national charity that offers a certification program fostering environmental learning and climate action in K to 12 schools across the country. So as JC was mentioning, we are a very big organization reaching about 750,000 students annually, and we are the largest bilingual voluntary environmental certification program here in Canada. So our program, which is free for all public schools, empowers students to become environmental leaders while engaging the entire school community in sustainability initiatives. And through curriculum-linked resources, professional learning, contests, campaigns, and more, we help schools integrate eco-learning into everyday activities and take actions, making a lasting impact on our communities. And as part of our program, we invite students across Canada to take meaningful actions toward building climate resilient communities. And a great example of this is Project 2050, which is an initiative that empowers students to make a real impact through simple, everyday actions at their schools. And since we are all together here today, we would like also to invite you to join us this great project by completing at least 3 of the actions shown on the screen and earn a beautiful achievement badge for your school, recognizing your efforts as climate leaders. So if you have any questions about the EcoSchools program, want to know more, please feel free to reach out to us and we will be happy to answer all your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ayub. That is spectacular. And we are going to be sharing all that information with the classes at the end of the broadcast, ecoschoolscan.ca and the amazing at ecoschools.ca and at ecoschools.can. We're going to pass that along to everyone who's registered, over 500 kids coast to coast to coast. So thank you so much for that. And as we said, we are also joined today by our amazing scientists at Environment and Climate Change Canada. And before I bring them on, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun about our feathered friends, you can pull up that game pen and do just that in about 25 minutes or so. But first, I want to welcome in Barbara Frei, who's joined us several times before in the history of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. She's going to talk to us today about bright lights, big cities, and birds on the move. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today. Feel free to flick on your mic and bring up the presentation, and I know you've got a lot to share with us today, so let's dive in.
Thank you. And let me just go ahead. There's always some technology. I hope everybody's doing good.
Perfect. We are all set. Let's do this thing.
There we go. So hello, everybody from snowy Montreal. I am stuck here But I'm very happy to be with you, although my kids are out snowboarding. It's a snow day. I think some of you might have some snow too. So let's get cozy and talk about birds. So who am I? My name is Barbara. I'm a scientist. I'm a mom, as I alluded to. I'm a mentor, which means that I get a chance to work with young upcoming scientists to teach them about how we do science and how we ask questions. I'm a field ecologist, which means I get to be outside as part of my job. And I'm a nature lover, which means I'm outside even more because I love it. And I'm a science communicator, which means I try to take the science and get it to people who can make change, which can be policymakers, but it can be people just like yourselves and more. So let's start today by, even though it's snowing cold outside, I'm going to go back in time and ask you to join me for a springtime forest walk. So where I live on the island of Montreal, a short 10-minute bike ride takes me to this park in the Grand Parc de l'Ouest, or the big park in the western part of the island. And it's my favorite place to go in the spring. It's green, it's lush, you can smell the trillium. But these are all the beautiful things you can see. Let's add in another scent. Now, hopefully you have some audio on and you can hear bird song.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So just in that 10 seconds, I can tell you we were joined by at least 5 of our feathered friends, which you can see here. And these are all migratory birds. So birds that decided not to spend the cold Canadian winter, but to go down south and then come back up for breeding seasons every year. So you can see there's 5 different species here. 4 of those we're going to settle right in those forests in Montreal to call that home for the summer and raise their young. The one with the red berry in its mouth, the Swainson's thrush, is going to still keep going further up north to the boreal forest. So I was just using that springtime walk time with me to kind of rest and refuel. Now, that's the good side. With those beautiful bouquet of birds that I showed you. The sad side is our migratory birds are in trouble. We've had almost 3 billion birds, so individual birds, disappear about in the last 50 years. So there's just that many less birds in the landscape, filling your trees and your forests with song and doing all the incredible things that they do in the ecosystem. Now, why is this worrisome overall? It's because birds are what we call bioindicators for biodiversity. So that means that when we have more birds around, likely we have more other animals, other insects, other plants, and just a healthier ecosystem. And that's in trouble for us too, because if they're in trouble, that means ecosystem, and eventually we could be in trouble. Now, how does this relate to what I was talking to about cities? Why should we care about birds and things like forests in cities? Because this, of course, it doesn't look always the same from a park to your residential street to maybe even a little scrubby area that's forgotten. Well, all these pieces of nature near where we live provide us things. The trees provide us shade. They regulate the water, so they help absorb water when there's heavy rainfall, and they support other creatures like birds. And these birds do a whole bunch of other stuff for us. They do pest regulation, which means basically they eat insects like mosquitoes. They can pollinate and create food. They can disperse seeds or plant new forests for us. And they can do a whole lot of other things that we don't even sometimes see, but we can feel. And that is that being around birds can actually, scientifically proven, make you healthier, make you feel better, make you experience joy when you hear the bird song or you see the colors. So there's a lot of things that are good about birds. And hopefully I'll have started to convince you just how awesome they are. Now, again, coming back to that point of cities, why do we care in a country full of forests? Why do urban forests and urban nature matter for birds? Well, even though Canada is huge and it is incredible, we have kind of created a bit of gauntlet for those birds. Now, remember I talked about migratory birds, so the birds that are going to leave here in the winter, go down south, and then come back again in the summer. So 70%, or 3 out of every 4 birds, are migratory that we see. And that means that if we're looking at this map of Canada, where we have the dark green being the boreal forest and being really a place where a lot of birds go, those areas in orange are that where we have put our cities or our towns or agricultural areas, which means Every year, twice a year, 5 billion birds migrate to and from the boreal forests, down south and back up again, and travel through those places. This means that our urban green spaces are important to be stepping stones for the birds on this massive journey that they undertake, because they pass through cities. Not only do they pass through cities, they're actually attracted to cities because of the light that's there, which means they can come to a place which is full of threats and things they didn't expect. And this could be cats, which I'm not going to get into because Elizabeth is the pro at that one, but can be cars hitting them. They could hit windows. And that means birds need safe spaces to spend their time to rest and to eat. And so that's where I come in, because I wanted to come up with questions and search out the answers, which is basically what science is in researching birds. I'm going to take you through 2 questions about what I want to learn about birds to help inform how we can protect them and conserve our green spaces for them, and the science that I do and the technology that I can use to answer these questions. So my first question is 1, how do we manage nature for cities, for birds, and for people? Well, one of the things I need to know to do that is what kind of birds do we find in city parks where there's people at, and where we might need to manage these as different expectations for people want lots of trails, birds are going to need forests. And I want to look at both the species and the numbers there. So I kind of alluded to this or gave you a hint at the beginning when I played that bird song for you. And I said, oh, through those 10 seconds of songs, I could identify 5 species. And that is because birds have this incredible way of kind of telling us where they are, even if we don't see them. And that is through their song. So each species has a unique song that it sings. And people like myself can learn that. And it's almost like speaking a different language. But I can't be in every park, in every area, every day. As fun as that might be, just I can't do it. And I can't have an army of people doing it. So I put out these little recording units called autonomous recording units, which is basically putting a microphone on a tree and listening. And then I can not only hear the sound, but I can see it. And what I can see it is through something called a spectrogram. This is what a spectrogram is. And you'll see that for each one of the sounds, it's almost like a unique fingerprint that I can imagine seeing that bird is singing. So I can go back to this and I can look at this and listen to it and identify the birds. So for example, I can look at that unique pattern and say, oh, that one, that's a red-eyed vireo, where it's going, here I am, where are you? Oh, there's my yellow warbler going, sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. And if you read music, you can almost see that in that spectrogram, it goes up and down. And lastly, American Redstart, which has a very complicated song, but it sings it really strongly, so you can see that fingerprint. Now, who's ready for a challenge? I'm going to challenge you to see how many individual bird fingerprints you can see. Ready? I'm playing a trick on you. Sometimes it really isn't easy when there's a forest full of birds. And that's why I have my superstar birder and research technician, Anna Morales, which helps me out. And we're also exploring how to use artificial intelligence and special computer programs to help us identify them. But we still need to check, because sometimes those computer programs get confused. For example, it was telling me a backing up truck, which was going beep, 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 sounded like a saw-whet owl, which it was not. So we still have to validate with people. My second question I'm going to talk about is how much time a bird will spend in cities during its lifetime. Again, is it just stopping through for a day, or are they having a nice long rest? And what kind of areas are they using when they stay in our parks? So my data need is, are birds in cities during migration, and for how long? Well, for this, I can't just put out my recorders, because I won't be able to follow individuals. I need to know how long each one of this, like little yellow guy 1 or yellow guy 2, is spending in our urban forest. So I am a licensed bird bander, and I've been bird banding for almost 20 years now. And what I do is I go out and I capture them with special mist nets, which kind of looks like a volleyball net. It's called mist nets because you almost can't see them very well. So I put them up early in the morning when the birds are flying around, still looking for their food, and I capture them. And I'm very gentle, and I have a special license to do this and lots of training. But I take the birds, I give them a little bird bling, which is, you can see the bird band around orange there. And then I even give them a backpack. So I put these little white looking backpacks on, which are actually emitting radio waves. And then myself and my technicians and students run around with what looks like a big antenna, which will go beep, 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 and we can go find them again. And this way we can see where they're going, where they're spending their time, how long they're standing in our forests. And that's the hard work of somebody like my student Anne-Marie Cousineau, which is her in our second year. Right now, she might be out looking at cardinals and winters in Montreal. And she can go and she can follow the different birds from day to day to day to see where they're going, where they're spending their time. Do they have a favorite bird feeder? Or are they going in trafficked areas which are dangerous for them? Just to learn how birds are moving around the city. And even neater, there's a whole group of scientists that got together and put up towers all across the world to pick up these little tiny signals that something the size of my pinky nail on the back of a bird is sending out. And this means as they migrate, and this is actual data that we collected out here from Montreal, each one of those colored lines, the different colors are different species, and each line is an individual bird. We can follow them as they migrate hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers away to go talk through the breeding time, and we can find out where they're going, how long they're spending the time, and how fast they're traveling. So that's just some of the ways that I look at the science of understanding birds in cities and the way I try to answer those questions. For more information about bird banding, which I do through the McGill Bird Observatory, you can check us out on YouTube by just typing in McGill Bird Observatory or studying birds at the McGill Bird Observatory. And you can find several different videos in French and English that talk just about how we do the work that we do. And a couple take-home messages that I wanted to talk about is we want nature in and around our cities for many reasons. It makes us healthy, it makes us feel good, and it brings birds here, which is always awesome. These birds play important roles in ecosystems for birds, and they're just super cool. Almost any bird can be a city bird, especially during the migration season. So in the spring when it's coming up soon, and in the fall, get those binoculars out and see who you can find, because you'll be very surprised who might show up right in your neighborhood park. And there's a bunch of new technology, which is helping us learn to understand where and how long birds are spending in cities. And we're finding out it's a lot more than we thought. And we can have bird and people-friendly cities. We just have to work at it. So with that, I'll say thank you. Merci, Nyawin.
Thank you so much, Barbara. What a fun and fantastic program, and a great kickoff of our two-part epic program today. Oh, there's our Argyle Center class there. Hi, guys. Guys, it's such an extraordinary experience to get to go out to a city park and see a bunch of birds. Now, you get to do it in such a sort of excellent and scientific way, but just for me, myself, like walking around, seeing blue jays, pigeons, crows, we got a lot of seagulls where I am. So it's one of the great experiences you can have in nature in your life, and we're going to pass along a bunch of resources to our classes to do that in as a cool a way as possible when we're done. But thank you so much for our first program. Stick around for our big Q&A, of course. And as you alluded to, we've got Elizabeth here to talk a little bit more about cats, some other elements of the bird exploration game. And so, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome as well to the broadcast. So nice to have you here.
Hello.
Hello. I know you've got a lot to share, so feel free to dive in and bring up your presentation.
Okay.
And then we're going to do our nice Kahoot and Q&A after that.
Okay, I think everything is running here.
You're golden. Couldn't be better. The annual
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jesse.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take you on a bit of a journey. So Barbara talked about all sort of great science that we do as scientists, and a lot of the work I do is somewhat similar to Barbara, but we work at different places. So I live way out on the west coast of Canada, right near Vancouver, British Columbia. And so I work with a lot of birds that don't necessarily migrate to places in the south, but a lot of them go north and spend the winter in Vancouver. So right now in Vancouver, there are hundreds of thousands of birds that came to the region to spend the winter, because unlike Montreal, we don't get as much snow And we don't get as cold weather in the winter as a lot of parts in Canada. So birds really like to come to this region I'm in for the winter. So I'm going to take you on a journey of a bird that comes to Vancouver in the winter. So I would like you to meet koa. So koa is what we call a golden crowned sparrow. And it's called a golden crowned sparrow because you can see on the right here, it has this sort of yellowish gold little markings on the top of the head. So it's like a little crown. So this is like the king of sparrows or the queen of sparrows because it has a crown. And Barbara talked about that we can put little tiny tracking devices on the backs of birds. We put a little backpack and we can follow them. And so koa is one of the birds that my team has followed. And we followed it, on its whole year of where it's going in North America. And what a lot of people don't realize is how small and tiny some of these birds are. So you hear those birds that Barbara was talking about in the forest that are singing away and they seem larger than life, but in reality, they fit in the palm of your hand and weigh as little as 6 loonies. And so you can think of if you have 6 loonies, maybe that's like your allowance, or you go to the store, you get a bunch of loonies, you put in your palm of your hand. That's how much koa weighs. Not very much. And birds they don't weigh very much because that helps them fly. So they have all kinds of adaptations and things that help them allow them to fly. And one of them is being very, very lightweight. And so koa was hatched way up in Alaska. So way up in Alaska, it's all these sort of tundra, willows, small shrubbery areas. And this is where koa was born. Had a mom and a dad. And so koa, was raised there from May to August. And then koa was lucky enough to survive this 4-month ordeal and became a young adult. But then he migrated and moved from Alaska all the way down to Vancouver in September or October. And this journey is over 16,000 kilometers. And this is a really, really long way. So if I was in Vancouver and I drove to Saskatoon, which is actually right where that sort of red mark is, that's about 16,000 kilometers. And that would take me several days of driving. But koa doesn't have a vehicle, doesn't have a car. He has to fly under his own wings. And remember, he only weighs as much as 6 loonies. So he has to fly from Alaska to Vancouver all by himself. And he does that in about 10 to 15 days. So really, really fast, actually, for a bird. And if you were to walk that distance, you wouldn't get anywhere as far as koa can get flying in that time. So koa arrives in Vancouver, and Vancouver has a lot of areas that are like a lot of cities. They have a big built up area with lots of skyscrapers and so on, but also a lot of areas of people have yards that have a lot of vegetation. And koa decided that he was going to live in this yard. This is actually where koa, the bird that one of my team studies, spent the winter. And so you can see one of my team members on the far left is using one of those nets that Barbara talked about, a mist net. That's how we catch birds like koa. And so this is where we caught koa when he first came to Vancouver. And we put little markers on him so we can follow him throughout the year. And we were able to see that he stayed the whole winter, which is about 7 months of the year in this yard, which is really amazing because they came all this way and they decided that they were going to spend their time in one little yard. So koa made it through those 7 months of winter, ate lots and lots of food, and then went all the way back to Alaska. Right back to really close to where he hatched. And koa sang his little heart away, singing, "Oh dear me, and attracted a really nice female that then he had some kids with. And so he became a dad for the first time. And he raised those kids, fed them a lot, and then his kids and the other female all started their journey again. They spent 4 months up in Alaska and then came all the way back down to Vancouver area again. And just like the year before, Koa went to exactly the same yard he spent the winter in because it seemed safe. It seemed like a really great place to get lots of food and survive and just enjoy life on his sort of winter vacation. But I want you to meet another friend that is often in cities. And so someone moved in a few doors down from this house in this yard, and they brought with them Bobby. Bobby is a cat. And some people like to put their cats outside because they get exercise. Other people like to keep their cats indoors because they don't want their cat getting hurt. But Bobby is a cat that people put outside. And one of the things that my team does is we like to see what cats do. And we like to see what cats do because they do a lot of interesting things. They wander around neighborhoods. They like to eat birds. They like to eat small mammals like chipmunks and squirrels and rabbits. And we wanted to see what they eat and when they eat them. And so we put little tiny cameras on their chest. So I want you to think about if we attach the GoPro to your chest and we got to see what you did during a day. So think about this. So I know I would probably, if I put it on, I'd spend the night sleeping, I'd get out of bed, they'd see me kind of do a morning routine, get some food, maybe get some exercise, go for a walk, work, eat, so on. That's kind of what we see with a cat. We see it moving around, we see it what it's eating, we see it interacting with other people or cats. And it can tell us a lot about what cats are doing, which helps us understand how we can make the lives of cats better, how we can make the lives of people better by understanding cats better, and also how we can help birds. So Koa is going about his business, eating lots of food in this nice yard in Vancouver. And one day, Bobby comes by. Bobby sneaks up on Koa, and at the last second, Koa makes the alarm call and races away, just avoiding being captured from Bobby. So thankfully, Koa was able to avoid Bobby because there was good vegetation around for him to hide in, but not all birds are so lucky. And so thankfully, Bobby was able to go and get all the way back to Alaska to breed again. But not all birds are so lucky. And unfortunately, another bird that decided to breed, so spends time during May and June in that same yard, was not so lucky. In fact, their nest was not so lucky. So I'm going to show you some of the footage that we get from a cat. And now this may be a little bit disturbing because it does involve a cat eating birds. And so if that's going to make you a little bit squeamish, please cover your eyes and look away. There's no sound, so don't worry about that. And just don't look. But I know you're probably really curious of what cats are seeing and what they're doing. So you can look if you want to. So what you're going to see is, I'm going to show you, it's going to be black and white footage. At the top of the screen is the cat's chin. We put the camera right around their neck. And so you're going to see the chin of the cat and the mouth is right there. And at the bottom, you're going to see a bunch of numbers. That's just information that we're using to understand what's happening. It tells us where the cat is and what time of day it is. And so this cat is up in a tree. It walked along and it saw something and jumped up in the tree. And what you're going to see is when it's in the tree, what it's doing. It's very short. So if you miss it, you're going to miss it. It's very quick. So hang on, make sure this works. So here's a cat. It's found a nest of a bird. And in this nest, it's found some young robins, which it's captured. And it's going to actually eat those robins. You're not going to see it eating them. But it's just captured the birds, and it's going to bring them down from the tree where it's going to then eat those birds. So unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of birds, hundreds of millions of birds every single year are killed by cats in Canada. And even around the world, this number is actually in the trillions. So we want to think about how we can keep birds like koa safe. And that means if you have a cat, and you should really think about what you can do to help your cat not kill birds. So one of the things that you can do is keep your cat indoors. And when cats are indoors, they need a lot of stimulation because they're not getting the same activity that they would necessarily outside. So play with your cat. Cats are cute, they're fun, they love to play, and it can be a lot of fun for you to interact and play with your cat as well. So if you're able to keep your cat inside and play with your cat and provide it with stimulation, that can do a lot to keep koa safe. And so far, because the owners of Bobby decided after seeing some of the footage that, hey, they don't really want Bobby outside anymore. So they've now trained it to be an indoor cat. And so now koa is safe. And thank you very much. I'm going to leave you with that message. Thank
you so much, Elizabeth. That is the first time in 1,500 programs that we've ever followed like an individual animal, especially one like a charismatic bird. So that was so neat. Thank you so much for that. Wow, we got two such different and sort of complementary approaches to bird science in Canada, some of the amazing things that you guys can do at home. And what we're going to do now is do our little Kahoot together. So for those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is the everlasting respect of Elizabeth, Barbara, and I. So I'm going to bring the two of you in. If you want to help us out with any hints to any of these questions as I pull up my screen here and we dive in with our Kahoot together. And if you don't know the answer, I think you'll know all these, but you can try your hand and give us little hints as we go along. And then we're going to dive in with questions. We've got a bevy of live classes, tons more on YouTube. So we're really excited to dive in with a nice Q&A for 10 minutes after we're done this. But we are going to get to it in about 2.2 seconds. Let me pull this up and get us underway. All right, here we go. Let's press it and start. So many names, so many of you are in. That's fantastic. By the way, we've got kids in Nicaragua, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Alberta, Quebec, 500 kids registered for today, which is really, really exciting. So here's our first question. True or false? Birds are dinosaurs. We did not talk about this, but I just love to harp on it. And we did a paleontology program the other day, so it's all in my head. So what do we think? Someone actually mentioned this in the chat on YouTube, and I put a cassowary foot here to maybe drive the point home that our feathered friends may have an interesting origin story. Let's see, 15 answers in so far. The answer is yes. Oh, 2/3 of you thought yes. So for the 5 of you who thought no, yeah, birds are dinosaurs. It rocks. It's one of the big things that like when I was a boy, they were like starting to talk about that. And now firm as can be, birds are one group of dinosaurs that survived the meteorite impact. So show a little respect to our birds is the moral of the story. Space Dolphin takes our lead as we go to question 2. All right. How many species of bird can we find in Canada? Ooh, is it 50, 100, 250, or around 500? Now, anyone who's ever joined me for a Kahoot before will know I go big. Maybe that might be our answer. Now, in the world, there's over 10,000 species of bird, which is amazing. Everything from flamingos to giant eagles and beyond. In Canada, yes, we are lucky to have all around 500 species of bird, everything from loons to Canada geese to amazing, beautiful songbirds. So go outside, go explore. We're going to provide a lot of ways that you can do that and go and learn about some of our feathered friends nearby, but it's really special to get out and explore. All right, what are some of the big threats facing birds? Elizabeth and Barbara talked about quite a few of these. Bright windows at night, cats, habitat loss, or all of the above. And again, if you've ever joined me for a Kahoot before, maybe one of these answers is one that I really like to highlight. So there's some big threats to birds out there. And yes, most of you got this right, all of the above. Cats, I would say accurately, is the biggest threat to birds in the whole world. Like there's nothing nothing beats cats. For all the talk about other things, cats are the worst, but there are some things that are really impacting them. And the more that we can do to help, the better. Polite Pony has our lead. Giving Owl, which I will note is a bird, is second. I kind of want the bird to win. No offense, Polite Pony. All right, multi-select. There's more than one answer here. What can we do to help? We talked about some of these. Let's see. Can you tell your friends what you learned today? Can you keep your cats indoors and play with them? Can we help support conservation groups in general? And can we take action to prevent birds hitting windows? Maybe close our blinds at night, put up little dots to make sure the birds know that it's a window. There's more than one answer. Maybe it's all 4. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Let's see. All right. 14 answers in. Yes, it's all of these. Oh my goodness. You guys are on the ball. Way to go, everybody. Okay. Let's see what that does to our leaderboard. And then we are going to head to our challenge program school for our first question. They braved a snowstorm today to make it in. Argyle Center, we're coming to you after that. Let's see. Glowing Bee second. Polite Pony second, which means maybe, fingers crossed. Yes, the owl won. I love when it's just such a fluke. I'm so childish, but it's immensely enjoyable. I'm going to leave the two of you on camera the whole time. If you want to flick on your mics, you're more than welcome to. We're going to dive in with our first question from our challenge program school where someone's waving their arm, so I'm assuming they're our owl friend. But come on in and take us away with the first question. Hello.
Oh, they're talking about you. You need to come here.
Yes.
What do I do?
Just talk to the. This is the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Just sit down.
Hi.
Hold on. There.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. Do you have a question for us?
No.
Oh, you just wanted to come say hi.
Question.
Well, hello. It's a pleasure meeting you. If you think of a question, you can come back to us, and I'll come back in a quick second. We're going to head to our Argyle Center grade 5 crew. Come on in and unmute your mic. Hello, folks.
Hello. So
Oh.
I don't have any questions for my students yet,
We're
but
maybe kind of.
so what is like a typical lifespan of someone like Koa?
Fantastic. Elizabeth, will let you field that one.
Yeah, so a bird like koa can live anywhere from a few months all the way up to about 7 or 8 years. So a bird is really lucky to live 7 or 8 years. Most only live to be 2 or 3 years old.
Fantastic. Thanks, Argyle Center. I have a question for both of you because it's come in on the chat, and so it's either really easy or really hard. Do you have a favorite kind of bird? No pressure at all. Barbara, you get to kick us.
Yeah, so my favorite bird is usually the bird that I can see. I love just watching birds. But if I had to, binoculars to my head, choose one, my first bird that I worked on in my master's is something called the bobolink. And it's not much to look at. It's kind of black and white and brown, but it sounds like R2-D2. And when you've got 7 of them flying around you in a field first thing in the morning, and they're literally going like, it's a pretty fantastic feeling. So there you go.
Elizabeth, before we come to your answer, I just want to say, Barbara, if you ever want to come on and just do bird sounds for the entire 20-minute program, you are welcome to do that anytime you'd like. That sounds truly delightful. Thank you very, very much for that. Elizabeth, favorite bird? What do we think?
Oh, there's no single favorite bird, but if I had to pick one, like Barbara said, it's often a bird that we study. So my PhD was on northern flickers, and so I'm very fond of them. They're one of the birds that you might see eating ants on your lawn. They're common in cities, so they're something that we see a lot all year. And they're really cool because the males are the ones that raise the kids the most, and the females actually go around and cheat on the males. So it's they're a really cool bird.
Elizabeth, you're bringing all the bird scandals to this program today. We've got eating birds in the nest. We've got infidelity. It's very exciting. By the way, we've never had the phrase, and nor will any program ever have the phrase again, binoculars to the head. So thank you for that, Barbara, as well. You two are a riot. Caesar has been joining us in Nicaragua all week long. I think he's been for every single program. And so he wants to know, what's the place with the most birds that you've found in Canada? So again, Barbara, I'll come to you first. Top bird spot for anyone who might want to go exploring?
Okay, so there's going to this is a tricky one because I think there's certain places where if you go to and there's a mix of habitats. So I'm talking there's a little bit of water and there's a forest and there's a grassy area. Diversity is a spice of life. That'll just mean that you'll have a lot of species that can come in. So places like Long Point, for example, in southern Ontario, have a mix of a lot of different habitats and are in a migration pathway. But for me, actually, the most birds that I've ever seen in my life in Canada would be at the banding station, the McGill Bird Observatory, 5 minutes from my house on the island of Montreal, but it was on what's called a fallout day, which is when you have when you just have a lot of birds moving through, weather that's pushing them down, and suddenly you wake up and there's birds all around. So it's about an event. Yeah.
We've had the Long Point Bird Observatory on and the Prince Edward Point Bird Observatory on, and these places that are right at the edges of the Great Lakes where all the birds need to stop and take a rest. For me, it was the Toronto Islands have just tons and tons of species. It's such a special, special spot. Elizabeth, how about you? You're in a totally different spot.
Yeah, well, it is those fallout spots in the east, like along the Great Lakes, that are really special, that you just get tons and tons of birds. But out west, there are some spots in the middle of BC that have lots of little wetlands and forests, and you get all these different ducks, dozens of species of ducks, or maybe about a dozen species of ducks, and you get birds that are in the grasslands and forests. And so you get this multi-diversity of species. And that's one of my favorite areas as well.
I want to highlight for everyone, we've talked about a few amazing programs, 3 billion birds, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, just one of the best in the world. But if you use the iNaturalist app, or Seek, which is like the spin-off Pokemon Go for nature for kids, you can like type in wherever you are in the world, Corner Brook, Newfoundland, or Montreal, or Vancouver, and you'll see all the wildlife that people have ever taken a picture of right there. So like my colleague Joe literally saw that someone had seen a snowy owl near him the other day, and he drove 20 minutes, and there it was, like right in the field. And I mean, how amazing to be able to use this app that's publicly accessible and anyone can contribute to find some of the coolest species on planet Earth. We've got a stellar sea eagle in Newfoundland right now, which is like one of the great birds in the world. So I'd encourage you, like, use that tool. It's so fun. You can explore and find so much. All right, let's take a couple more questions from our live groups. Challenge program, if you have one, you can come up to the camera. Argyle Center, if you have another one for us, come on in. And time flies and you're having fun. So we've only got a few more minutes together before we wrap up. But take us away if you got a question. Hey.
Okay, so my class has a couple questions. Let me just go back. Do dogs eat birds? What is the rarest type of bird? And can cats and birds ever get along?
Nice questions. All right. Elizabeth, we're going to come to you first for dogs eating birds and can cats and birds get along? And Barbara, you can answer the other one.
Yeah, well, yes, some dogs will eat birds, but certainly not as much as cats. Dogs tend to be, if a bird flies in front of them, they'll go after it. So it is possible, but they not nearly as much as cats. And what were the other questions?
Can cats and birds be friends? Is that ever going to happen? What do we think?
Oh, probably not. I think, yeah, cats historically have always loved to capture birds. They like to go after things that move. And so one of the cool things about cats is they're one of the few animals in the world, might be the only animal in the world, that actually sort of hunts for fun. And so they actually just have fun going after birds.
Savage.
Yeah.
Little Fluffy is not to be let outside. Keep Fluffy indoors. There's your call of the day. And then Barbara, the other question goes to you. And do you remember it? Do I remember it? Sorry.
It was the rarest bird in the world. So yeah, I'm going to use the excuse of talking. I've never seen this bird, probably because it is one of the rarest bird in the world, but there's a bird called the kakapo in New Zealand. And it's this giant parrot that walks on the ground and can't fly. Yeah, exactly. It has a neat name too. And a reason that it's rare is because you have these birds that become very specialized. Because birds can fly, they can go anywhere in the world. They can inhabit almost any island, any place. That's why they're found like up in the Arctic, in the Antarctic, on all these remote islands. But then they get really specialized. So the kakapo got really specialized. I mean, a parrot that walks along the ground makes these holes and makes these crazy sounds, but then it's really vulnerable when there's change coming. So when we got rats and other things that came onto New Zealand where it was found, it was really vulnerable, and that's why it's really rare.
It's an exceptional animal. I'm so glad you chose it of all birds. It's so cool. And in fact, New Zealand actually has the biggest program in the world to eliminate all the predators. So there's actually like a nationwide effort to go out and catch all the stoats, all the rats, all the everything, which is this Herculean task. And slowly but surely, they're working to help protect birds like the kakapo and the rest of the really unique wildlife there. So great question, guys. All right. Time flies and you're having fun. I'm going to highlight Ecoschools at Ecoschools Can and ecoschools.ca. Again, I'm going to share that and a whole bevy of amazing Environment Canada resources at the end of the broadcast. I really encourage you, check out iNaturalist as well. And birdcount.org, the Great Backyard Bird Count, starts tomorrow. So you can go out and explore and find all sorts of great stuff right close to home, wherever you're joining from. But before we wrap up, I'm going to bring in our challenge program students for one final question. Take us away. Hello, guys at Calvin Park. Hey.
I'm wondering, which bird is like the most resilient or survives the most?
Ooh, the most resilient. Barbara, Elizabeth. We'll go with Barbara first because you went last time. take us away. What's the best resilient bird?
Oh, a resilient bird. That is a great question. Around here, I'd think of something like crows, or a lot of birds that we think of as nuisance birds. So they're kind of annoying. We see them everywhere. They're cool because they're resilient. So you have, crows that can change over and learn from people's behaviors because they're actually really smart and they see what people are doing. They can use tools and they, eat on burgers in the parking lot rather than what they should be eating on, but that makes them adaptive, right? So I think that's kind of pretty cool. I don't know, Elizabeth, what do you think? Do you have another good example?
Yeah, I was going to say pigeons are highly adaptable, or European starlings.
Yeah.
So, birds that can survive around humans are very resilient and very adaptable.
There's a really spectacular cities episode in Planet Earth 2, which is just amazing. And they talk about some of those resilient birds, pigeons, they talk about seagulls, they talk about crows, these ones that you find in cities. I think the coolest one in cities that regularly has made a home there are peregrine falcons. So the fastest animal in the world uses cityscapes as like endless cliffs that they can hunt those pigeons from. And it's super, super neat. So great question, really unique question. Barbara, Elizabeth, thank you both so much for your passion, your expertise, enthusiasm, all of this. We've passed along a bevy of resources, and I hope our kids take the chance to keep the learning going, go out to their local neck of the woods and find some cool birds themselves. And what we do to end every broadcast, I'm going to bring in our classes to say thank you and farewell. So our challenge program and Argyle Center classes, thank you both so much. And we'll say farewell from there.
You can say hi, point it, look this way and wave.
Bye now, everyone. See you all soon. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.